Hi, my name is Amir Daylami, and I'm going to talk to you about blockchain and cryptocurrency and explain to you how and why it's disrupting the financial industry. Let's talk about why blockchain even has a use. The traditional method is centralization of database. When database is centralized, the server is vulnerable to power outages. The backups could be limited, and the backups themselves could fail, and they could be, not up to date enough and create even more problems. Redundancies, which is basically a mirror server, are expensive and it's difficult to synchronize them. Um, Security can be breached. Anybody who accesses a centralized database can easily manipulate all of the data. In fact, anybody with the right permission can go in and manipulate all of the data, which is not necessarily something that you would want if you want to have a permanent set of data that can be validated easily. And it's also slow to connect from regions that are too far away from the server. So this is why you have, the Russia mirror, the UK mirror, and the US mirror when a lot of times they want to download something from a global website. The blockchain is a decentralized database. It is data being shared, hosted, compressed, and encrypted by a large network of computers. Um, the data is divided into blocks, and each block is compressed and encrypted into a small string called a hash. Each block contains the hash of the previous block, meaning that each block's hash is dependent on the previous one. So this is where the name blockchain comes from. It's a chain of blocks connected through hashes. Here we have a demonstration of what it looks like. There's the traditional method right there, a centralized database, and there's a decentralized database. And as you can see, every participant has a copy of the database, ensuring that it is not being manipulated in any way. So how does a blockchain validate information? The hash is generated from the block data, like I said, including the previous block's hash. Changing the data would generate a new hash, which means it's going to affect all the blocks going forward. If 50% of the computers agree that the data is valid, then the data is validated and placed in the permanent ledger, which is again shared among all the computers. If the chain of blocks disagrees with what the computer is submitting to the blockchain, then that data is ignored. So it's not like you can just go in and change the information on your computer that's hosting part of the blockchain and have it change everywhere else. This is what the example of the blockchain looks like in a sort of there's a valid chain versus a broken chain. So the valid chain, you can see how the hash is, connected, right? You can see these hashes are the same between each block, and this is referring to the block before it, right? So block 10, 11, 12, 13. And here in block 11, somebody decided to change their information, so they generated a new hash, right? Now this hash is not the same as this one, right? So in a real life scenario, this would have a different hash itself, and it will keep moving forward, and eventually it will be sort of ignored because it doesn't agree with the rest of the computers in the network. The benefits of blockchain is that it's very scalable. So like I said, anybody can become part of the blockchain. It is a constant and up-to-date backup that can be distributed all around the world among many computers. The ledgers are permanent and cannot be manipulated. The servers can be placed everywhere in the world. The data is encrypted and compressed, ensuring that it transmits quickly and safely. And also it allows for the use of cryptocurrency and smart contracts to completely automate complex distributions of currency upon delivery of goods and services. So the current system, like I said, is very inefficient and it takes a very long time for the money to move around. So it's not like you can do the same exact thing with money right now. Every time something happens, it would have to take at least 24 hours for the money to go through. So it's not very suitable for this kind of solution. But cryptocurrency is. So cryptocurrency can be distributed through smart contracts, like I said, completely automatically and without human intervention upon delivery of goods and services. So any kind of validation you want to put in for the goods and services being delivered, that can be the trigger for the money to move around. And before that point, money is not going to move. It all depends on how you write the smart contract. Basically, imagine a piece of code that automates a transaction depending on what scenario is falling into. Digital currency is hosted on a public and permanent ledger on a blockchain. That way, everybody knows, what the transactions have been so far. Similar to Venmo, but running on a completely different type of platform, and everything is completely public. A reward is given to the host computers, and the cryptocurrency is that reward. And this is for the fact that they're encrypting the data and compressing it and transmitting it through the computers. Obviously, this costs electricity, this costs resources and computers and everything else. So they give this reward to the owners of these computers, who are called miners, M-I-N-E-R. And the cryptocurrency can be exchanged on the markets. So depending on the supply and demand, the value goes up and down. So this is where the real benefit of giving this currency to the owners of the computer comes in, because they can, sell the cryptocurrency that they are being rewarded for their computing power. The first mention of a system similar to blockchain was in the second issue of the 1991 Journal of Cryptology. Something called an article called "How to Timestamp a Digital Document" by Stuart Haber, and I believe edited by Scott Stornetta. So you can look this up and read it for yourself. The next part of the history of blockchain was many, many years later, in 2008, when a mysterious figure called by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto worked with a team of developers to launch a blockchain and cryptocurrency system called Bitcoin. Bitcoin was worth 0.0054 in 2009. So somebody bought 5,000 Bitcoins for $27. Then by 2017, it reached $20,000 each. Interesting story here is that somebody bought 2 pizzas from Papa John's for 10,000 Bitcoins. A decision I'm definitely sure that they're regretting now. Now, it's worth mentioning that Bitcoin value actually dropped well below $9,000 now, but that's very typical of a new technology that's being adapted and creates a sort of a craze, and then the market drives its value very high. So it disrupts hosting, as I said. So obviously, until recently, the centralized database and cloud was the latest and greatest solution, and the only application of the decentralized database was the peer-to-peer file sharing. So if you ever used LimeWire or BitTorrent or something like that, you know what I'm talking about. It's basically a same file shared over a bunch of computers, right? And nobody can change it. They can only host it or download it. But more importantly, it disrupts the financial industry. So the financial industry right now has way too much power. It issues government-backed currency. The majority of the currency in the world is actually in digital format already. Only about less than 30% of currency is in gold and banknotes. Everything else is hosted within computers and notch files and databases right now. There's up to 3% charge per transaction, or about 3% charge per transaction. I'm sure you know Visa charges that amount for every transaction. The money moves around through notch files, which I don't know if you've ever seen one. It's basically a text file. There's no encryption in it. It just has a bunch of routing numbers and balances and dates and stuff like that. And it moves from one bank to another every 24 hours. That is if they have direct communication with each other. If they don't have direct communication with each other, it has to go from one bank to another, then from that bank to the next one, then to the next one, then to the next one, then to the next one. So, if you're trying to do an international transfer, then good luck. It's going to take a while because it's going to move from, banks all throughout the world until it gets to where it needs to get to. The cryptocurrency is generated from the computing power of the computers in a network processing the data, and the value is determined by the market. The public backs the value rather than a single government. The ecosystem is global and completely gets around the clunky banking systems of today. Anyone with a computer can generate income while helping the system grow. Ledgers are permanent and balances are validated by thousands of computers around the globe. My personal involvement with this was I'm working at a software company, and our CEO is adamant that the blockchain is the way of the future. He's currently working on a ICO with a consultant who's already launched 20 ICOs. And I was in charge of the content graphics and the presentation of the website. Feel free to check out autocoin.us. Also, my friend has very little understanding of technology in general, but understands the markets very well. He's been buying and selling cars for a very long time. He got into buying and selling cryptocurrencies, generating over $40,000 in profits at some point. Right now, he's not very happy because the value is going down, but he did he did it very smart, so he did benefit from it greatly. And the market instability prevented me personally from investing my own money in it. In conclusion, there's no doubt that the blockchain is very promising and it's too good of an idea to be dismissed as just a fad. It's not going to go away. Just like the .com era, it has this rise in value, over a short period of time, and then all of a sudden it goes down. But from the ashes of that market crash are going to be the big names, the IBM.com and the name.com and X.com and PayPal and everybody else. So obviously a lot of those companies that were very valuable back then are still very valuable, but not all of them, not all the smaller ones were able to survive that crash. So I think a very similar thing is going to happen with blockchain and cryptocurrency. I believe they should be more simplified, more refined, and more made to be more user-friendly. They should be regulated by the government to some extent, so that way it meets the market demands and able to give that kind of assurance to people that somebody is having some kind of oversight. So there's any lawsuit or anything like that, somebody can take action through the traditional means. In other words, make it backwards compatible with the world. So I think the world of tomorrow is going to be very different from today, where we're going to have artificial intelligence and underground, highway systems. And I think cryptocurrencies that can be used in just about every business and in all around the world, and it's going to make transactions a lot more simple and a lot more efficient in general. So hope I delivered the information in an understandable way and didn't go too fast. I know there was a lot of content and this is a lot longer than we expected, but I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and thank you so much for your time.